Daddy, don't leave me now. You are the only one that I have. Please wake up.
Those were the last words Nora Donald cried into her father's chest as he took his final breath in that cold hospital room. Her hands shook as she held him, begging him to stay. But he was already gone.
I'm done with the marriage. I want a divorce.
I just buried my father, and I'm 6 months pregnant for you, and you want to divorce me?
I don't care. You should just sign the divorce papers.
Nora felt like her whole world had ended. Her father was the only person who had ever truly loved her without conditions. Less than 24 hours later, just 24 hours after her dad died, just 24 hours after she buried him, Nora saw something she never thought she would survive. Her husband, Sean, was standing inside a courthouse. Not to support her, not to mourn with her, but to sign a marriage license. He was marrying his mistress, Patricia, the same woman who had quietly whispered, "Finally," the moment Nora's father's heart monitor went flat. Nora stood there, 6 months pregnant, holding a baby that would never meet its grandfather. Her hands clutched her father's old, worn jacket, the one that still smelled like him. Her fingernails still had dirt under them from that same morning, when she placed roses on his coffin and watched it lower into the ground. Tears streamed down her face as she watched her husband marry another woman, while her father's grave was still fresh. But what truly shattered Nora's heart into pieces so small she could barely breathe wasn't just watching Sean marry his mistress so soon after her father's death. It was the envelope shaking in her hands. The envelope her dying father had pressed into her palm with the last bit of strength he had. He had leaned close and whispered, "Baby girl, when I'm gone, open this. And remember this. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. I made sure of that." What Sean didn't know, as he kissed his mistress with the lips that should have been comforting his grieving, pregnant wife. What Patricia didn't know, as she smiled proudly at the broken woman still dressed in funeral black, was that Nora's father, the quiet man who worked as a janitor at an elementary school for 35 years, who took extra shifts on Christmas so Nora could have presents, who ate instant noodles so she could attend dance lessons, was not just a janitor. He was a secret billionaire, worth $5.2 billion. He gave up luxury on purpose. He lived simply on purpose. Because he wanted his daughter to grow up knowing that character matters more than cash, that love is worth more than luxury, and that a good heart is the only treasure that truly lasts. And in exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes, when Nora's hands would finally stop shaking long enough to open that envelope and discover she had inherited $5 billion, Patricia would let out a scream so raw, so full of horror, that it would echo through that parking garage like a wounded animal. "Oh my God, Sean," she would cry. "You left a billionaire. You divorced a billionaire, for me. What have we done?" But here is the part that will break your heart, and then slowly put it back together. 3 weeks before he died, Nora's father called his attorney from his hospital bed. His voice was weak, but his mind was sharp. He said, "Harold, listen to me carefully. My son-in-law is going to leave my daughter. I can see it in his eyes. He looks at her like she's a burden now that she's pregnant and I'm dying." He paused, then continued, "So I need you to make sure that when he walks away, when he thinks he's escaping poverty for something better, he can never touch what I'm leaving her. Put everything in an irrevocable trust. Make it untouchable. Make it bulletproof." Then he whispered, "When my baby girl finally discovers who she really is, I want her to know that her daddy protected her, even from the grave. If you have ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or underestimated, this story is for you. If you believe in karma, real karma. If you believe good people deserve justice. If you believe that real love is the only thing that lasts forever. And if you've ever lost someone who loved you more than life itself, someone who protected you when no one else did, this story honors them. But to truly understand how we got here, to understand why Nora's father knew exactly what Sean would do, we need to go back 24 hours earlier, to the moment everything fell apart, and somehow came together at the same time. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and death. Nora Donald had been sitting in the same hard plastic chair for 16 hours straight. Her fingers were wrapped tightly around her father's hand as she watched the machines beside him count down his final moments. Soft beeps, glowing numbers, each one slower, quieter, weaker than the last. Harry Donald, known to the world as just another invisible janitor among millions of working people, lay beneath thin white sheets. The sheets made his dark skin look pale and grey, made him look smaller than Nora had ever seen him. To her, he had always been larger than life. He was the man who taught her how to ride a bike on early Saturday mornings before heading to work. The man who never missed a parent-teacher meeting, always showing up in his work uniform, smelling like pine cleaner and hard work, sitting proudly in those tiny classroom chairs. It never mattered what he wore or how tired he looked. Every single night before bed, he told her the same words. "You are brilliant. You are worthy. You are loved beyond measure." And now, he was leaving her. The cancer had come fast and cruel. 3 months, from diagnosis to this moment. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors had said maybe 6 months with treatment. He barely made it 12 weeks. Nora's phone buzzed in her lap. She glanced down through blurry eyes. A message from her husband, Sean. "Still at the hospital? My presentation got moved to tomorrow morning. Going to stay at Dave's tonight to prep. Don't wait up." She stared at the screen as something cold and heavy settled in her chest. Her father was dying right now, and Sean was worried about a sales presentation. She didn't reply. She turned the phone face down and squeezed her father's hand tighter. His eyes fluttered open. They were still sharp. Still her daddy's eyes, even as everything else was shutting down. "Nora," he whispered, his voice thin, like paper tearing. "My beautiful girl." "I'm here, Daddy," she cried softly. "I'm right here." "I need to tell you something," he said, struggling to breathe as the ventilator hissed beside him. "Something important. Listen carefully." "Save your strength," she begged. "We can talk when you're better." "No, baby." His grip tightened with surprising strength. "No more pretending. This is it. And you need to know everything." Tears spilled down Nora's face. "Daddy, please." "In my apartment," he continued, each word taking effort. "Bedroom closet. Old Nike showbox. False bottom. There's a key." "A key," she whispered. "Safety deposit box. First National Bank. Box 1247. He started coughing, his whole body shaking. "Everything you need is there. Everything I should have told you years ago." "I don't understand," Nora sobbed. "You will." His eyes locked onto hers. And in them, she saw something she had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of dying, but fear of leaving her unprotected. "Promise me," he said weakly. "Promise you'll go. Promise you won't tell anyone until you understand." "I promise," she said quickly. "Not Sean." His voice suddenly grew stronger. "Especially not Sean." Nora froze. "What? Why?" "Because I see him, baby," Harry whispered. "I see how he looks at you now that you're pregnant. Now that I'm sick. Like you're a burden, not a blessing." His breathing became shallow. "I added something to my will 3 weeks ago," he said. "Protection for you. For my grandbaby." "Daddy, what are you talking about?" But the machines began to change their rhythm. The beeps grew farther apart. A nurse rushed in, checked the monitors, and her face said everything. "Mr. Donald," the nurse said gently, "do you want us to?" "No," Harry whispered. "No machines. Just my daughter." The nurse nodded and quietly left, closing the door behind her. Harry looked at Nora and, somehow, he smiled. "You know what the best day of my life was?" he asked. She shook her head, unable to speak through her sobs. "The day your mama placed you in my arms," he said softly. "You were so tiny. So perfect. And I thought, this is it. This is what I was born for. Not money. Not power. Not the things my family wanted for me. Just you. Just loving you." Nora's voice broke. "Tell me about her." Her mother had died giving birth to her. She had never known her. "She was a teacher," Harry said, his eyes drifting. "Beautiful. Kind. Pure. Everything good in this world." He paused. "My family hated her. Said she wasn't good enough. Said she wasn't in our class. They gave me a choice, her or the inheritance. What inheritance? Nora whispered. I chose her, he said. Every time, I chose love. And when she died bringing you into this world, I chose you. He took a shaky breath. I walked away from billions to raise you right. To teach you what truly matters. Nora's head spun. Billions? Daddy, what are you saying? My real name, he said slowly, is Harry Hartwell III. Each word cost him more strength. Hartwell Industrial Holdings. My grandfather's empire. I was supposed to take over. Supposed to marry someone my mother picked. But then I met your mama, he continued. And I knew she was my real life. So I left. Changed my name. Got a job mopping floors. And I never regretted it. Not once. Nora could barely breathe. You mean, we were rich? Not rich, baby. He smiled faintly. Wealthy. There's a difference. Rich is what you have. Wealthy is what you are. He looked at her with pride. And you, my darling girl, are the wealthiest person I know. Why didn't you tell me? She cried. Because I wanted you normal, he said. I wanted you to be loved for who you are, not your money. I wanted you to know your own strength. His breathing was labored now. But I never stopped managing it, he added. The money. Growing it. Protecting it. For you. The monitors started screaming. Nora wanted to call for help, but she couldn't let go of his hand. The envelope, Harry gasped. In the deposit box. It explains everything. The trusts. The protections. He pulled her close with the last of his strength. Trust the plan, he whispered. I know it's going to hurt. I know what's coming. But trust the plan. What's coming, Daddy? She cried. What do you mean? But his eyes were already closing. You are never alone, he whispered. You are never poor. You are never powerless. I made sure of that. Daddy, no, Nora sobbed. I love you. I love you too, he said softly. More than all the money in the world. You are my greatest treasure. And then, he was gone. The machines flatlined. The sound echoed in Nora's ears like the end of everything. She collapsed onto his chest, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe, clutching his worn work shirt and breathing in his scent one last time. Soap, coffee, and love. She didn't hear the door open. She didn't hear the nurses come in. She didn't hear them gently telling her it was time to let go. All she heard was the silence. The empty space where her father's voice used to be. And in her pocket, her phone buzzed again. Sean. Hey babe. Dave's girlfriend is here too. We're all going to grab drinks. Probably a late night. You good? Nora stared at the message through her tears, her father's words echoing loudly in her mind. I see how he looks at you, like you're a burden instead of a blessing. For the first time, she saw it too. The rain poured down hard over Evergreen Cemetery, like the sky itself was grieving. Nora stood at the edge of her father's grave, her black dress completely soaked. One hand rested on her swollen belly as the preacher spoke, but the words meant nothing to her. She couldn't hear him. All she heard was the desperate voice in her head screaming that this couldn't be real. That any second now, her daddy would walk up behind her, tap her shoulder, and say, "Just kidding, baby girl. I'm not going anywhere." But the mahogany casket slowly lowering into the ground said otherwise. The yellow roses she had placed on top, his favorite, were already wilting in the rain, their petals washing into the mud. There were maybe 30 people there. Old co-workers from the elementary school. A few neighbors. Some distant relatives who came out of obligation. People Nora barely recognized. Her father had lived quietly, loved deeply, and died leaving a hole in the world that felt too big for her to survive. Sean stood beside her, but he might as well have been on another planet. He held the umbrella over his own head, not hers. He checked his phone every few minutes, his jaw tight with impatience. And when the preacher said, "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust," Sean let out a sigh, loud enough for Nora to hear. She looked at him, really looked at him, and she saw a stranger. This was the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health, for better or worse. And he couldn't even pretend to care that she had just lost everything. After the service, people lined up to offer condolences, words Nora would never remember. Sean leaned in close and whispered, "I need to head out. Got a thing with some clients." Nora turned slowly to face him. "A thing?" she asked flatly. "Sean, we just buried my father." "I know, babe, and I'm sorry," he said quickly. "But this deal has been in the works for months. I can't just—" "Your wife just buried her father," she said, her voice empty. "And you have a thing." He at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, you've got people here," he said. "You'll be fine. I'll see you at home later." He kissed her forehead, quick and careless, like you'd pat a dog, and walked away. Through the rain, toward the parking lot. He pulled out his phone before he even reached his car. Nora watched him leave, something inside her cracking, something she didn't yet have a name for. An elderly woman approached her. It was Mrs. Chen, who had worked the front desk at her father's school for years. She pulled Nora into a tight hug that smelled like lavender and old fabric. "Your daddy was the best man I ever knew," she whispered. "He talked about you every single day. You were his whole world." Nora couldn't speak. She just nodded, rain and tears mixing on her face. "He told me something a few weeks ago," Mrs. Chen continued. "He said, 'Helen, my baby girl is stronger than she knows, and soon she's going to need every bit of that strength.'" She paused. "I didn't understand then. But Nora, whatever you're facing, whatever's coming, you've got your daddy's blood in you. That means you've got steel in your spine." Mrs. Chen squeezed her hand gently and walked away. Nora stood alone in the rain, those words repeating in her mind. Whatever's coming. Her father had known. Somehow, he had known. That night, Nora sat alone in her father's tiny apartment, surrounded by the life he had built. The thin, worn couch he'd owned for over 20 years. The old TV that only got 3 channels. The small kitchen table where he helped her with homework every night. Where they ate countless meals together. Where he taught her that the best conversations happened over simple food and real love. She should have been packing his things. Sorting through his belongings. Doing all the things people do after someone dies. But she couldn't move. She sat there wearing his old jacket, breathing in the fading smell of him, trying to understand what he meant about the safety deposit box, about protection, about being a Hartwell. Her phone rang. "Sean." "Hey," he said. Loud music and laughter filled the background. "Just checking in. You okay? Where are you?" "At my dad's place," Nora said quietly. "Oh. Okay. I just grabbed dinner with the team," he said. "You know how it is. Had to decompress after the funeral. Heavy day." Heavy day. Like he had been the one lowering his father into the ground. "When you coming home?" she asked. Probably late. We might hit a bar after this. You should get some rest. You look exhausted." "I look exhausted." Her voice cracked. "Sean, I buried my father today." "I know, babe," he replied, clearly irritated now. "That's why I'm saying you should rest." Then, coldly, "Look, I gotta go order some food. Take a bath. I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up before she could say another word. Nora sat there staring at her phone. That was when she saw it. A notification appeared at the top of the screen. Sean's Instagram had been tagged in a photo. Her hands began to shake as she tapped it open. There he was, sitting in a trendy restaurant she had never heard of, relaxed in a booth. And pressed close to him, laughing at something he had said, was a woman Nora had never seen before. She was beautiful, polished, confident. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than Nora's monthly rent. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with my favorite people. Patricia Chen." Nora's chest tightened. Patricia Chen. Senior Marketing Director at Sean's company. Nora had heard that name before. Sean mentioned her sometimes. His boss. The woman he was always in meetings with. Nora clicked on Patricia's profile. It was public. The page was full of expensive restaurants, luxury vacations, designer clothes, and smiling photos that screamed success. Then Nora scrolled. 3 photos down, her heart dropped. Another picture of Sean and Patricia. His arm was wrapped around her waist. Her hand rested on his chest. They were smiling like people who had already won. The post was dated 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, while Nora's father was dying. While she was spending every night at the hospital. While her world was falling apart. The caption said, "When you know, you know." Nora's vision blurred. She kept scrolling. More photos. Sean and Patricia at a concert. On a beach. In what looked like a hotel room, cropped carefully, but not carefully enough. The affair hadn't just happened. It had been going on for months. Maybe longer. While she was pregnant with his child. While her father was dying. While she was drowning in grief, fear, and loneliness. Sean had been building a whole new life with someone else. Nora ran to the bathroom and threw up. Her body rejected the truth like poison. When the shaking finally stopped, she lifted her head and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her face was pale. Her pregnant belly pushed against her father's oversized jacket. She looked exactly like what she was. A broken woman who had lost everything. And in that moment, staring at her shattered reflection, Nora made a decision. Tomorrow, she would go to the bank. She would open the safety deposit box. She would find out what her father meant about being a Hartwell. About protection. About never being powerless. Because right now, she felt like the most powerless person on earth. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sean. "By the way, we need to talk when I get home. Something important." Those words. The words that never meant anything good. Nora knew what was coming. She felt it deep in her bones, the way you feel a storm before it breaks. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that in exactly 18 hours, her entire world would flip upside down in ways she could never imagine. Morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Nora hadn't slept. She spent the night on her father's couch, clutching his jacket, staring at the ceiling, waiting for Sean to come home. He never did. At 6 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Stayed at Dave's. Coming by at 9 o'clock. We need to talk. Important." Nora's hands moved to her belly. Her baby. Her little girl, the doctor had told her just last week. The baby kicked hard, like she could feel her mother's fear. "It's okay, sweet girl," Nora whispered softly. "We're going to be okay. Your grandpa promised. We just have to trust the plan." But she had no idea what the plan was. At 8:30 a.m., Nora forced herself into the shower. Forced herself to put on clean clothes. Forced herself to look like a person instead of a ghost. She chose a simple black dress, the same one she wore to the funeral yesterday. Everything else felt too bright. Too alive for how she felt inside. She made coffee she wouldn't drink. She sat at the kitchen table. And she waited. Sean arrived at 9:15. Late on purpose. A power move. She saw it now, and wondered how many small cruelties she had missed while loving him. He looked good. Rested. Calm. Like a man who hadn't buried his father-in-law the day before. He wore expensive cologne, something he never wore around her. For a brief moment, Nora wondered if he had been with Patricia all night. "Hey," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "How you feeling?" "How do you think I'm feeling?" Nora replied quietly, "I buried my father yesterday." "Right. Yeah." He sat down across from her. And that was when she saw it. The folder in his hand. Manila. Official. The kind lawyers use. Her heart began to pound. "Look," Sean said, sliding the folder across the table, "there's no easy way to say this." He took a breath. "I want a divorce." The words hit her like a physical blow. Even though she knew. Even though she had felt it coming. Hearing it out loud stole her breath. "What?" she whispered. "I'm not happy, Nora," he said smoothly, like he had practiced this speech. "I haven't been for a long time. We've grown apart. You've been so focused on your dad's illness, and I need something different." "My dad died yesterday," she said. "Yesterday, Sean. And you're asking for a divorce today. The timing isn't ideal." "Isn't ideal?" She let out a broken laugh. I'm 6 months pregnant with your baby. My father, the only family I had left, just died. And the timing isn't ideal. I know it's hard, he said, switching to his sales voice. But dragging this out won't help anyone. I've already talked to a lawyer. It can be clean. Simple. He leaned back. You keep the apartment. I'll pay child support. We both move on. Move on. Nora's hands shook. To what? To who? She grabbed her phone, opened Instagram, and shoved it across the table. Sean's face went blank. How long? She demanded. How long have you been sleeping with your boss while I was watching my father die? It's not like that. Then what is it like? She shouted. What is it like to cheat on your pregnant wife while her father is dying of cancer? What is it like to attend his funeral and then go out celebrating with your mistress? Don't make this ugly, he snapped. I didn't plan for this. Patricia and I, we connect. She understands me. She's ambitious. Successful. Going places. She understands the life I want. Every word cut deep. And what am I? Nora cried. What was I to you? You were my wife, he said calmly. Were. You're a good person, Nora, he added. You really are. But you were never going to be enough for the life I want. The cruelty took her breath away. I'm pregnant with your child. I know, he said. And I'll support the baby financially. I'm not a monster. But I won't stay in a marriage just because of biology. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Sign the papers. My lawyer will contact you. I'll come this weekend to get my things. Sean, please. She hated the begging in her voice. Hated that some part of her still wanted him to stay. He looked at her. Really looked at her. And what she saw in his eyes was worse than anger. It was pity. You'll be okay, he said. You're strong. You'll figure it out. And then he left. Just walked out. Leaving Nora sitting there, 6 months pregnant, freshly orphaned, divorce papers on the table, and a future that looked like a black hole. Nora sat in the quiet room, not moving, her father's words playing again and again in her head. I see it in his eyes. He looks at you like you're a burden. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi Nora, this is Patricia. I know this must be hard for you, but Sean and I are in love. We'd appreciate your discretion and cooperation during this transition. We'd like to move forward with our lives as quickly as possible. Thank you for understanding. Nora stared at the screen. The audacity. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. Something shifted inside her. Not anger. Not tears. Something colder. Clearer. Sharper. She stood up, grabbed her keys, pulled on her father's jacket, and walked out the door. It was time to find out what her father meant when he said she was never powerless. First National Bank stood tall and imposing, all marble floors and high ceilings that echoed with every step. It felt old. Serious. Important. Nora walked up to the information desk, her pregnant belly leading the way. I need to access safety deposit box 1247, she said calmly. The woman typed quickly, then suddenly stopped. She looked up at Nora differently now. One moment, please, she said. I need to get the manager. Within minutes, a man in an expensive suit appeared. Miss Donald, he said politely. I'm Gerald Whitmore, branch manager. Please follow me. He led her into a private room, used 2 separate keys to open the box, then quietly excused himself. Inside was a single large envelope. Nora's hands shook as she opened it. On top was a letter, written in her father's familiar handwriting. Under it were documents. So many documents. Stock certificates. Property deeds. Bank statements filled with numbers that didn't feel real. She picked up the letter first. My dearest Nora. If you're reading this, I'm gone. You're probably confused, maybe scared, and definitely grieving. I'm so sorry I'm not there to explain this to you in person. I wish I could hold you while you process it. I wish I could see your face when you finally understand who you really are. But baby girl, it's time you know the truth, about the Hartwell family, about me, and about everything I've been protecting you from, and protecting for you all these years. Tears streamed down Nora's face as she kept reading. Her father was Harry Hartwell III, the heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire. At 23, he had walked away from it all to marry her mother, the woman his family said wasn't good enough. He changed his name, took a janitor's job, built a real life based on love, not money. But he never gave up the inheritance. He hid it, managed it quietly through lawyers, let it grow, protected it for her. And 3 weeks before he died, knowing exactly what Sean would do, he restructured everything, placing it all into an irrevocable trust that Sean could never touch. Not even if they were still married. Nora stared at the line that showed the total value of the estate. $5.2 billion. $5.2 billion. Her father, the man who ate instant noodles so she could take dance lessons, had been worth $5 billion. And he left all of it to her. She broke down crying when she reached the final paragraph. I know what Sean is going to do, baby girl. I've seen it in his eyes for months. He's going to leave you. He's going to hurt you in ways that make you question everything. But I need you to understand this. Him leaving is the greatest gift he could ever give you. Because now you'll know. You'll know that when he chose to walk away, he had no idea what he was leaving behind. He left you because he thought you were poor. Because he thought you were weak. Because he thought he could do better. Let him go. Let him marry his mistress. Let him build his small little life. And when you're ready, when you've healed, you show him, her, and the whole world exactly who Nora Donald Hartwell really is. Not with cruelty. Not with revenge. But by building a life so full, so powerful, so meaningful that they spend the rest of their lives choking on regret. That's the Hartwell way. We don't destroy our enemies. We become so magnificent, they destroy themselves. Trust the plan, baby girl. I love you more than all the billions in the world. Daddy. Nora stayed in that room for 2 hours, reading and rereading everything. Then she picked up her phone and called the law firm whose card was clipped to the documents. Hartwell and Associates. A man answered immediately. Miss Donald, we've been expecting your call. I'm Harold Ashford, your father's attorney, and your cousin. Your father was my uncle, Harry. He paused, then said gently, I'd like to meet with you and explain everything. Begin the transition of assets. Would tomorrow work? Tomorrow. Nora's voice felt hollow. My husband asked me for a divorce this morning. I know, Harold said softly. Your father predicted it. He had me prepare something special for this exact situation. I'm so sorry for your loss, he continued. Your uncle was the best man I ever knew. But I promise you, he's still protecting you. Everything is in place. Everything will be okay. When the call ended, Nora sat quietly, her hand resting on her belly, her mind racing. Sean had asked for a divorce because he thought she had nothing. Because he thought Patricia, with her salary and designer clothes, was the better choice. He had no idea he had just walked away from $5 billion. Tomorrow, Nora would begin learning what that truly meant. But first, she had to let him go. She drove home, signed every page of the divorce papers Sean had left behind, and sealed them in an envelope addressed to his lawyer. Then she opened her laptop and bought a one-way ticket to New York for the next morning. Harold had offered a private jet. Nora said no. She wasn't ready for that world yet. She needed one more day of being regular Nora. One more day before everything changed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sean. Did you sign? She replied. Yes. You're free. His response came immediately. Thank you for being reasonable about this. For what it's worth, I hope you find happiness. Nora stared at the message, the casual cruelty, the belief that he was doing her a favor. She deleted it without replying. Then Nora opened Instagram and went to Patricia's profile one last time. The newest post made her stomach tighten. It showed Patricia and Sean standing inside what looked like a luxury jewelry store. A glass case of rings sparkled behind them. Sean's arm was around Patricia's waist. Patricia was holding up her hand, a diamond flashing under bright lights. The caption read, When you know, you know. Engaged. New beginnings. They were engaged. The same day he had asked for a divorce. Probably the same day Nora had buried her father. Something shifted inside her. Not anger. Not even pain anymore. Something colder. Something patient. Something her father had been teaching her whole life, without her even knowing why. Dignity in the face of cruelty. Grace under pressure. The long game. Nora left a comment under the post. Congratulations. I wish you both all the happiness you deserve. Every word meant exactly what it said. Within an hour, the post exploded. People who knew Nora, who knew she had lost her father and her marriage in the same week, flooded the comments in outrage. Patricia's page turned into a war zone. Nora turned off her phone. That night, she went to bed in her father's apartment, wrapped in his jacket, one hand resting on her belly. Your grandpa was a smart man, she whispered to her baby. He knew exactly what he was doing. We just have to trust the plan. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. A storm was coming, and Nora Donald Hartwell was ready for it. The law offices of Hartwell and Associates occupied the entire 47th floor of the Sterling Tower in Manhattan. When Nora stepped out of the elevator the next morning, everything around her was glass, chrome, and quiet, the kind of quiet only money could buy. The receptionist looked up, and her expression changed immediately. Miss Hartwell. Donald, Nora corrected softly, out of habit. She was led down a long hallway lined with portraits of stern-looking men in suits. Hartwells. Her ancestors. Then she saw it. At the end of the hall hung a portrait of a young man with kind eyes and a smile that looked like it was fighting to break free. Her father. Young. Wealthy. Before he had walked away from all of this, a distinguished man in his 60s stepped out, his face warming instantly. Nora, he said. I'm Harold Ashford. Your uncle. Your father was my Uncle Harry. He led her into a conference room where two others were waiting, a sharp-eyed woman and a younger man with a laptop. This is Patricia Whitmore, your financial advisor, Harold said, and David Chen, your accountant. They've managed your father's holdings for 15 years. He looked at Nora steadily. They work for you. Over the next few hours, they explained everything. Nora listened in stunned silence. She owned controlling shares in 17 major corporations. Commercial real estate across 12 states. A stock portfolio worth $1.8 billion. An art collection valued at $400 million. Liquid assets totaling $600 million. Your father restructured everything 3 weeks before he died, Harold said quietly. The day after Sean visited him in the hospital. Nora's breath caught. Sean visited him, she asked. He told me he couldn't get away from work. Harold's face darkened. He spent 15 minutes complaining, he said. About hospital bills. About how your pregnancy was bad timing. About pressure at work. He paused. He asked if your father had life insurance, to offset the burden. Nora felt tears slide down her cheeks. Your father heard every word, Harold continued. The very next day, he called me and made absolutely certain Sean could never touch a single penny. Harold slid a final letter across the table. Your father wanted you to hear this from me, he said gently. Sean didn't leave because you weren't enough. He left because he wasn't enough. He met her eyes. Now rise, not for revenge, but because you are a Hartwell. Build something beautiful. Help people. And when Sean sees what you've become, smile. Their regret is not your burden. Live well, he finished. That's the best revenge of all. Nora wiped her eyes. I want to help women in crisis, she said firmly. Single mothers. Women who feel powerless and alone. I want to start immediately. Your father already did, Patricia Whitmore said softly. He established a foundation with a $500 million endowment. It's ready whenever you are. Then I'm ready, Nora said. She paused. But first, I want to host a dinner. Potential partners. Board members. She pulled up Patricia Chen's LinkedIn profile on her phone. She's a senior marketing director, Nora said calmly. Successful. Well-connected. Exactly the kind of person a new foundation would want to meet, right? Harold's smile slowly turned knowing. And her new husband, he added. 3 weeks later, elegant invitations arrived at 50 carefully selected addresses. The Donald Hartwell Foundation. cordially invites you to an intimate dinner reception. Friday, October 15th. 7 p.m. The Metropolitan Club. Patricia showed the invitation to Sean immediately, her eyes shining. "This could be huge for my career," she said. "If I could get on their board." She RSVP'd yes within the hour. The Metropolitan Club was old money elegance, soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, power that whispered instead of shouted. Nora arrived early. She wore an emerald green maternity gown that flowed around her 7-month pregnant body. Diamond earrings, once owned by her Hartwell grandmother, sparkled at her ears. She had never felt more powerful. At 7:15 p.m., Sean and Patricia walked in. Nora saw them before they saw her. Sean looked stiff and uncomfortable, like a man who didn't belong among real wealth. Patricia, on the other hand, moved with confidence in her red designer dress, her eyes scanning the room, searching for important people to impress. Then Harold stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said clearly, "I would like to introduce the founder and director of the Donald Hartwell Foundation, Miss Nora Donald Hartwell." Nora stepped forward. Every eye in the room turned to her, including Sean's, including Patricia's. Nora watched the recognition hit them. She watched Sean's face drain of color. She watched Patricia's smile freeze, then crack. "Thank you all for coming," Nora began, her voice calm and steady. 3 months ago, I lost my father. He was a janitor at an elementary school. He taught me that true wealth is not measured by money, but by the lives you touch and the integrity you carry. She paused. What I didn't know was that my father, Harry Hartwell III, walked away from his family's fortune 35 years ago to marry the woman he loved. He chose love over money. And he raised me to value the same things. Sean gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles turning white. "When my father passed," Nora continued, "he left me his entire estate, valued at approximately $5.2 billion. But more importantly, he left me a mission, to help women who feel powerless and abandoned." Her eyes locked directly on Sean. "Because 3 months ago, I was one of those women." The room was silent. I was 6 months pregnant, grieving my father's death, when my husband asked me for a divorce. He told me I would never be enough. That he had found someone better. Someone more successful. Someone going places. Patricia lifted a shaking hand to her mouth. "He divorced me thinking I had nothing," Nora said. "And I let him go, because my father taught me that you can't lose what is truly yours, and you can't keep what was never meant to stay." She lifted her glass. "This foundation is for every woman who has been underestimated. Every woman who has been told she's not enough. Because sometimes, the people who leave you do you the greatest favor of your life. To new beginnings," Nora said. "And to knowing your worth." The room erupted in applause. People rushed forward to congratulate her. And at the back of the room, Sean and Patricia stood frozen, watching the woman they had dismissed become the center of a world they would never touch. Sean grabbed Patricia's arm and pulled her toward the exit. They barely made it to the parking garage before Patricia lost control. Her scream echoed off the concrete walls, raw, loud, and full of horror. "Oh my God, Sean!" she cried. "You left a billionaire. You divorced a billionaire for me. What have we done?" "I didn't know." Sean shouted back. "You didn't know." Patricia was shaking. "You said she was poor. You said we were trading up. Her father was a janitor." "She was poor," Sean snapped. "How was I supposed to know?" "You left her while she was pregnant," Patricia screamed. "You married me 24 hours after her father died, and she's worth $5 billion. "What you lost," Sean started. "You pushed me to leave her." Patricia cried. "You told me she had nothing." Her voice broke. "I'm the other woman in a story where the wife is one of the richest people in the state. My reputation, my career, everything is ruined." She stared at her wedding ring, then laughed bitterly. "I thought I won. But she let you go because you were nothing, and she knew it before we did." Patricia ripped the ring off her finger and threw it at him. "I can't be married to a man stupid enough to divorce a billionaire. This is over." "Patricia, wait." But she was already gone. Sean stood alone in the garage, surrounded by silence, carrying the weight of the biggest mistake of his life. Upstairs, Nora accepted congratulations and promises of support. She felt her baby kick, strong and steady. Harold approached her with a quiet smile. They left rather quickly, he said. Patricia was screaming in the parking garage. Nora felt nothing. No joy. No revenge. Just calm certainty. My father once told me, she said softly, that the best revenge is building a life so beautiful your enemies destroy themselves watching it. He would be very proud of you, Harold said. I know, Nora replied. I can feel it. 2 months later, Nora gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Naomi James Donald Hartwell. Sean was allowed supervised visits. Not because he deserved it, but because Nora believed her daughter deserved to know her father, even if he had proven unworthy of being part of Nora's life. Patricia moved to Boston to escape the scandal. She declared bankruptcy, took a lower-paying job where no one knew her name, and tried to forget the sound of her own scream in that parking garage. Nora built the foundation into something powerful. In the first year alone, 200 women were helped. Rent paid. Lives rebuilt. Hope restored. 5 years later, Naomi started kindergarten at the same elementary school where her grandfather had once worked as a janitor. Sean dropped her off, watching his confident daughter run into the building. She's amazing, he said quietly. Yes, Nora replied. She is. He wanted to say he had changed. That he understood now. That he wanted another chance. But Nora wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were on her daughter. She had won, not by destroying him, but by building a life so full and meaningful that his presence or absence no longer mattered. Nora stood in the morning sunlight, her father's words echoing in her heart. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. And she knew he had been right, not because of the billions, but because he had raised her to understand the truth. True power comes from within. True wealth is measured in love. And the people who leave you are often just making room for the life you were always meant to live. So if you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or told you weren't enough, remember Nora's story. And that's the end of Nora's story. A story about loss, betrayal, patience, and quiet strength. A story that reminds us that sometimes, the people who walk away from us are not taking something from us, they are making space for something greater. From this story we have come to learn that true wealth is not money. It is character, love, and integrity. Not everyone who leaves you is your loss. Some people leave because they were never meant to walk with you to your future. Silence can be power. You don't always need revenge or noise. Sometimes, living well is enough. Never judge someone by their current situation. You don't know what they carry, where they come from, or what they are becoming. A good foundation, built on love and values, outlasts betrayal. Nora didn't win by fighting. She won by becoming. Now we want to hear from you. What lessons stood out to you the most in this story? Have you ever been abandoned, underestimated, or betrayed, only to come out stronger? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your story might encourage someone else. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories like this one. Your support means everything.